was a good boy. He didn't do no harm to anybody.
Funeral services are held for 6-year-old King Carter, the latest and youngest victim in a brutal outbreak of teen gun violence.
They're punking each other out on the Facebook, saying derogatory comments to each other.
Facebook turns out to be the place where young thugs trade insults and threats and then retaliate with bullets.
Let me finish this statement. This is important.
You haven't hired one person.
He hired workers from Poland, and he had to pay $1 million or so in a judgment.
That's wrong.
Marco Rubio goes on the attack, blasting Donald Trump as a con artist, but Trump still holds a sizable lead in Florida. We will take it to the roundtable. Good morning. Glad you could be with us. We have got a lot of ground to cover today. We're going to take an extended look at the outbreak of teen gun violence and the murder of 6-year-old boy King Carter. But first, some presidential politics. Hillary Clinton scored a solid victory yesterday in South Carolina, beating Bernie Sanders handily and sweeping the caucuses and delegates there. She is looking more and more like the Democratic presidential nominee. My colleague and co-moderator of this show, Glenna Milberg, has spent the last few days in South Carolina. She joins us now live from Columbia. Glenna, good morning. Great to see you. Really no surprises in the results there in the caucuses yesterday, were there?
Hi, Michael. No, the actual win was no surprise. The polling here had showed Hillary Clinton was solidly 20 points ahead up until yesterday, although Bernie Sanders was closing the gap. But the surprise came in how big that win actually was. It beat those poll odds 3-1, and you know, this is the 4th vote that the Democrats have taken so far, the 4th state. But because of the geography and because of the demographics here, easily this is the biggest and most significant win for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's win was a South Carolina sweep, about a 3-1 margin, stronger than any of the polls suggested, and campaign rocket fuel heading to Super Tuesday.
We are not taking anything, and we're not taking anyone for granted.
Bernie Sanders got the news on a plane from his big rallies in Texas to this one in Minnesota, and focused on the delegate counts in more favorable northern and western states that vote this week.
I congratulate Secretary Clinton on her very strong victory. Tuesday, over 800 delegates are at stake, and we intend to win many, many of them.
Bernie!
Sanders' $2 million in ads, 200 workers, and celebrity endorsements here closed a poll gap, but in the end could not move South Carolina's critical African-American voters solidly for Hillary Clinton.
From way back, I know her husband.
I really, at this point, just want someone to win.
And signs Clinton is looking toward November, expecting Donald Trump to be the GOP opponent.
We don't need to make America great again. America has never stopped being great. But we do need to make America whole again. Tomorrow, this campaign goes national.
Well, today is tomorrow, and it is national. If you look at the exit polling, Bernie Sanders here did win one vote, and that is the young people vote. He got a majority of the voters who are 18 to 29, but here they're only 15% of the voting electorate. The most important, some 8 out of 10, more than 8 out of 10 African Americans voted for Hillary Clinton. That is the significant demographic in this state for the Democrats, and that is, Michael, solidly a Hillary Clinton vote.
Absolutely. Glenna, this victory in South Carolina certainly augurs well for Super Tuesday, which is this coming Tuesday. 11 states will be holding primaries, and it appears, if the polls are right, that Hillary Clinton probably is going to win 9 of those 11 states. Doesn't that sort of mean for Bernie Sanders it's over?
Well, Super Tuesday absolutely is going to be a huge day for Bernie Sanders. He has actually been focusing on the Super Tuesday states, the ones in the West and in the North that are much more favorable for him numbers-wise. About half of the states Super Tuesday are southern states. The polling there is absolutely a Hillary Clinton win in all of the southern states. You know, at this point, it's a numbers game. 4 states, there's been, I think, just about 5% of the delegates awarded. So this is sort of the momentum phase. Hillary Clinton has it. For Bernie Sanders, Super Tuesday is going to be the numbers phase. That's going to be a huge block of delegates, I think up to almost a third of the delegates awarded. And if he doesn't show that places like Colorado, where he's campaigning today, and Minnesota, where he was yesterday, if he doesn't take a significant block of those numbers there, then by all accounts, I think the conventional wisdom is Super Tuesday is the bellwether for the rest of the Sanders campaign.
It certainly looks that way. And as you know, Bill Clinton is going to be in Miami Gardens this afternoon. I'll be covering his appearance. We'll have a report later. And on Tuesday night, as I'm sure you also know, Hillary Clinton is going to be in Miami. So that's sort of sending a signal of how important Florida is to her.
Absolutely, 99 delegates, winner take all. And in Florida, I think you see a lot of focus. Super Tuesday, Hillary is going to be there, Marco Rubio is going to be there, Donald Trump is going to be there. So for both parties, Florida is a big state. That's March 15th, so there's another week to go before then. So it would be really interesting to see the Super Tuesday numbers headed toward Florida. Of course, you know, we've been covering the Democratic primary. For Marco Rubio, Florida is going to be the state to watch. He is polling behind Donald Trump there. Donald Trump has been an absolute juggernaut. You see Marco Rubio and Donald Trump, they are attacking each other, no longer on the issues. Now it's personal, now it's about their makeup and about their character. And the GOP side has gotten so ugly. And I think you're going to be seeing that for the next 2 weeks until that Florida number comes in.
Yeah, talk about ugly when Marco Rubio is saying that at the debate on Thursday night that Donald Trump urinated on himself. I mean, how much uglier can it get than that? And Trump, of course, responded in kind. He called Rubio a choker and a little boy on the stage. I mean, this is really nasty stuff, but kind of entertaining at the same time in a sad way. Glenna Milberg live in Columbia, South Carolina.
Well, and
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, Michael, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Entertainment is, I think, what, you know, in a loose way, Marco Rubio's camp is going for, because he sees Donald Trump gets the press. And you can talk issues and important, lofty goals, but getting press at this point is so critical, and Donald Trump does that just by being outrageous. And it seems like Marco Rubio now is trying that tack to just be outrageous to get the press, to get his name out there and to get notoriety. And in fact, the Wall Street Journal had a wonderful article about how Rubio's camp is actually looking at the matrix of stations, both local and press nationally, and figuring out what's going to be the way to get the most bang for the buck media-wise. And I think that's the sort of deterioration in the tone you're seeing right now.
Absolutely. And we should point out that both you and I have been in contact with the Rubio campaign, invited him to be on the show before our primary on the 15th. We're still waiting for an answer, but we are hopeful. Glenna, thank you very much. Great work up there in South Carolina, and we will see you at home, we hope, in the next day or two. All right, up next, we're going to take a closer look at the rash of shootings involving children, teenagers in Miami. Is there a will and is there leadership to stop it? In the last year, there has been an epidemic of gun violence in black neighborhoods in Miami-Dade, and most of it involves teenagers. More than 60 children and teenagers have been shot in the last year. 25 of them have died. It is an astounding and disturbing number. It got even worse this week when a 13-year-old boy or 6-year-old boy named King Carter was shot to death as he played outside his home in northwest Miami-Dade. That little boy, a first grader, with his whole life in front of him, got caught in the crossfire between teenagers who had had a dispute on Facebook, and they tried to settle it with bullets. 3 teenage boys were arrested. Leonard Adams is 18, Erwin Presley 17, Tamar teens, just 16 years old. Police caught them with help from the community, which is often reluctant to get involved. This morning, we have brought together panelists with expertise and a commitment to stop and reduce the gun violence that has claimed so many lives. Alberto Carvalho is the superintendent of Miami-Dade County Schools. He has been a powerful voice in decrying the loss of life and also consoling families who have lost children. Assistant Director Freddie Ramirez has served with the Miami-Dade Police Department for 20 years. He was the leading voice at the news conference at the State Attorney's Office this week. Esther Jacobo is the Chief Assistant State Attorney in Miami-Dade County. She formerly was the Secretary of the Department of Children and Families. She has deep experience with troubled kids. And for that matter, so does the Reverend Carl Johnson. He is the pastor of the 93rd Street Community Baptist Church in Miami. He has worked for years fighting the problem of gun violence. He is planning a summit meeting soon on this topic. To all of you, good morning. So great to have you come in. Chief Ramirez, let me begin by asking you, kids who had differences in the past, certainly I was young, used to maybe have a fist fight or push each other. Now they are going on Facebook, insulting each other, punking each other, is that what you call it? And then getting out guns? Why has it come to this?
Well, good morning, Mike, and thank you for having me on the show. The issue we have here is that Facebook has become like a virtual graffiti. Back in the day when we grew up, when people had beefs, they would go to a wall and spray paint it, and that small amount of people that knew that that wall was spray painted, disrespecting somebody's character, it was held to that small group. But now if you enter Facebook, you have 100+ friends, and you tear somebody's character apart, and you make references of firearms and things like that. Right. And if you as an individual aren't being mentored or have someone next to you to guide you to deal with that problem, you're going to resort to violence. And it's going to happen fast because your reputation is destroyed at a faster rate than it was before. Yeah, but resorting to gunfire, Pastor Johnson, I mean, these are kids, some of whom you know, and you see them, you counsel them.
Of course.
How do they get guns when they're 16, 17, 18 years old, and why are they so willing to use them?
I'm still beholden to that question. Don't know the solution, but I am working on a preventive measure in place to stop it. On yesterday, Michael, I had to eulogize a 19-year-old young man who was the cousin of the 10-year-old kid who got killed 11 months ago, Marlon Eason. Yeah, when I looked over the congregation, I saw some more problems in the congregation. I saw a lot of young men waiting to embrace ungodly activity. And I said to myself, this summit that I'm working on is the need to put it in place. Sitting next to me is Mr. Alberto. I love his heart. We connect because we have the same sentiment. In a recent meeting he had, he talks about us having the belief and the will and the skill to deal with these ills. Same mindset. And so what God has done for me is he's allowed me to speak to some of my gatekeepers recently to compile some information to bring hope to our community. I spoke to the U.S. Attorney, Mr. Ferrer, on Friday. He's getting me information. Good. Ms. Rundle getting me information.
All right, that's Esther's boss and Alberto Carvalho. Alberto, I know that your principals, your teachers, your counselors regularly in school look at kids who are about to or have gotten into trouble and try to steer them to a better path. But do you have, how successful are you with that?
Well, I think it cannot fall just on teachers and principals alone. It cannot fall on law enforcement or the faith-based community or the prosecutors. There will be no solution to this issue unless the community as a whole recognizes that it may not be necessarily in somebody's job description, but it is our collective responsibility to deal with these children. Parents need to be more engaged. Certainly the faith-based community needs to continue to give its inspiration and guidance. Schools are doing their part by teaching values. Look, this year we began the school year through Values Matter, the teaching of specific values, principles that students must embrace, young people must embrace. But look, most of the perpetrators of these crimes, unfortunately, they fell off the track long ago. As young children, well, they did not have the support.
These three young men, correct me, Director, if I'm not right, but at least two of the three young men who were arrested in the King Carter death already had really long rap sheets for kids. They've already been in serious trouble.
Sure. The vast majority of these young men, they have a long rap sheet. Their issues go back to opportunity gaps that began long before their teenage years. They were born poor. Their parents were either absent or not engaged.
Right.
Sadly, many of them were criminals themselves. Many of them were dealing with addiction issues. They never had a guiding hand that told them right from wrong. And that just gets progressively worse. So dealing with the issue just as we see it today through incarceration is insufficient. We need to build hope, opportunity in communities through employment for the parents, at the same time positive activities for the young people as young as we can possibly catch them, rather than deal with the painful, expensive remediation which follows the tragedy as we saw happening this week.
Esther, your office, state attorney, is charged with dealing with these young men, mainly young men, once in a while young women, but I guess what, 95% of these offenders are males. And they come to you with various levels of offenses. One of your first decisions has to be to either direct file or treat them as juveniles. Now, there was a lot of aggression for a lot of years. Direct file on them, charge them as adults. But that's been cut back, hasn't it?
Well, I mean, we've seen a shift, and I think it's because the science has told us that incarceration isn't the solution necessarily to the violence that keeps continuing in the community. I think the superintendent's correct. I think that the sooner that we get to them, the better that we get to them. So the state attorney has, I think, very thoughtfully, and she's been touted throughout the state at having done this the right way, trying to get interventions once they come into our system to make them better citizens, to teach them how to deal with anger. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work either.
Are there classes? I mean, what is it specifically that a young 16-year-old kid who has shown a weapon and done something bad, I mean, where does he go? What do you say to him to change his behavior?
There are many levels of interventions that happen in the juvenile system, and they start from anywhere from a diversion process where you have classes they take them to, for example, Jackson Memorial Hospital, show them gunshot victims, show them what the effects are of gun violence. There's also higher levels of intervention there through the Department of Juvenile Justice, which are as far as being inside a facility, being treated, being taught. The unfortunate piece, though, Michael, is that there is, even though these interventions exist, the culture of having this glamorization of gun violence that continues on the street many times is stronger than anything that we can do. And so, you know, it's the state attorney's belief, and I think rightly so, that this has to be, as the superintendent said, a multi-level approach to this. So law enforcement can do, for example, I don't interrupt, but for example, we've done, you know, we've embedded in our Northside initiative prosecutors to work with police so that we can solve the crimes and try, and that's...
Well, they were on the scene of that shooting. Your prosecutors were out there working with Miami-Dade Patrol and detectives.
Correct. The problem is that's kind of at the back end, right? So we've solved the crime, but the child is dead. So at some point we need to address somehow what happens in the mind of these youth that think it's okay, and actually it's great to have a gun, and it's bad to tell the police what's happening. And so it's just a really difficult problem that we as a community have to face together.
Alberto, hold your thought just a minute. We're going to take a break, come right back and get to you. Stay with us. We're going to talk about teens and gun violence in our community. We are talking with our guests this morning who have special expertise about this terrible outbreak of gun violence that has occurred over the last year or so. Although, Alberto Carballo, I was thinking as I looked at the funeral of little King Carter of Sherdavia Jenkins in the Liberty Square housing project, the Pork and Beans. That was 10 years ago that she, at the age of 9, got caught. You were there. She got caught in a crossfire between these kinds of gangbangers and thugs, drug dealers. And of course, the community said then, never again, we've got to stop this. And here we are 10 years later.
Right. Well, you know, truth of the matter is that rallies and march and prayer alone aren't going to get us there. It's going to be a community deliberate action, strategic action. This is no longer the community violence we're seeing preying upon our kids. is no longer a skill deficit issue, it's a will set proposition. It's not that we don't know what to do. The question is, do we have the political will and the opportunity to invest resources?
Thank you, sir. I mean, you've already begun, but I mean, lay out some kind of an action.
Well, you know, there are 5 steps we could easily take, and I think, you know, Metro-Dade County is taking them at all levels of political leadership. The police director are taking those actions, as well as the pastors. Look, number one, I think we need to do more in terms of providing the protection that witnesses to these crimes need. That is why Senate Bill 1314 in Tallahassee must pass to extend augmented witness protection to folks who know more, but because of fear of reprisal or consequence are not speaking to it.
Let me just stop you, if I may, right there, because Director Ramirez, your detectives for years and patrol officers have been frustrated by going out after a shooting, not just of a child, but, you know, certainly almost any of these shootings, and the neighborhood will say, I didn't see anything, because they're genuinely afraid of retaliation, and there has been retaliation. So does the Senate bill in the legislature that Alberto's talking about, would that help, you think, break open and bring more people forward with the kind of evidence that Esther and prosecutors need?
Absolutely, and Director Perez is behind that 100%. I'll tell you that the state of Florida gives roughly $100,000 for the whole state for witness protection, of which Miami-Dade County is the #1 consumer of that money, to the point where we've had to take from our own coffers to protect witnesses so that we could prosecute these cases, because these cases are circumstantial in nature. They're based heavily on witness testimony. And unfortunately, the witnesses have to live in that community, and there's a small amount of people, because I want to make sure everybody knows that the community is solid. The community as a whole is unified. You saw it in the funeral, and when I went to the wake of King Carter, there was hundreds of people there. Everybody cares. It's just coming up with a mechanism to protect them. We got to tell them as law enforcement that we have their back.
Well, I do want to point out that individual actions of people like you, Pastor Johnson, make such a difference. And you just, during the commercial break, told the story about seeing a kid who was about to break into cars.
Yes, sir.
Right near your church or
That's
in
correct.
your neighborhood. Tell us what you did.
Yeah. I know government's role is to promote good and punish bad. My role is to try to emphasize the good in people's lives by doing preventive things. On yesterday, my church had a prayer breakfast for me. I happened to get there a little late, and there was a young man, had a hoodie on, was walking on the side of the church to the parking lot across the street. He was getting ready to break in the car. He saw me. He was startled. I called him over. I didn't have fear. He seemed to have fear because I caught him. I said, come go with me inside the church. We got in there, and I stopped the service and said, this is my new young friend who we're going to embrace with love. We embraced him. He sat down, sat at my table. He was blown away, took his hoodie off, and began to feel good about being loved by me and the people around me. We spent a little time together, and after it was over, we walked out the church. His cellular phone was off. I gave him $60 to get it turned on, and I said, I want to see you tomorrow at church at the 11 o'clock service. He said, I'll be there. He left walking away with the hoodie off, head up, because my job was to promote good and avoid bad. Let me say this, Michael.
Beautiful story.
I'm all about this. My faith says to bring people Jesus, joy, and jobs to keep them from jail. You need jail for people who don't want to do right. But I'm the preventive man that's trying to avoid that. So that's my observation to you, Michael.
More power to you. And
thank you, sir.
Alberto, you and I shared a friendship with Georgia Jones Ayers, who died, I think, about 2 years ago. A remarkable force in the community and helped so many. She had an alternative school, which you know you helped run. I was with her once, walking through the Pork and Beans housing project. And this was a woman who then was in her late 60s, still had tremendous force. And a boy was walking by, I mean a kid, 15, 16 years old, who had his pants way down off his rear end. And you know what? Georgia called out to this boy, pull up your pants. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing your community. And you know what? He did.
What Georgia taught us is that you reclaim back the streets of Miami by first claiming the children, claiming the kids, the young and the teenagers alike. It's not expecting somebody to come in and educate kids. It's us accepting responsibility for guiding our kids. Of course, government can do a lot more, and we are doing. I mean, look, the mayor and I kicked off the roundtable against violence in our community after Newtown, Connecticut. We are back at the table to re-energize that process. The pastors and the leadership of Carl Johnson are doing the same. Prosecutors are doing good work, but a lot more needs to be done. But we need to do it at the same table. In a strategic, concerted effort.
And the Miami-Dade Police Department, City of Miami Police Department, Miami Gardens, other law enforcement, everybody needs to be at the table. All I can say is Local 10 News is going to be there to follow this, and we are as concerned as a news outlet as anybody else in the community.
We see that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
All right, still to come, the one and only roundtable. Stay with us. Time now for a closer look at the week's top news stories and some analysis and informed opinion. We've got an outstanding group for you today. Mark Caputo, a roundtable regular. He is the Florida correspondent for Politico, the website favored by political habitués like me. Mark also writes the daily Florida Political Daybook, or we should say the Politico Florida Daybook. And we also want to welcome back to Robert Malone, a college counselor, community activist who helps young people who stray or are about to stray from accepted behavior. Glad to also welcome back Rosemary O'Hara to the roundtable, editor of the editorial page of the Sun Sentinel. And she has just returned from her first trip to Cuba. We may get to hear later on about how your impressions of that. Robert Malone, you heard the conversation that we just had, and we hear, I think, honest declarations that there has to be some kind of concerted action plan. I think that there is. I mean, where do you begin? Where would you begin?
Like I was talking to the guest here. I speak to students at Ponciana Elementary School, some 9, 10, 11-year-olds, and we talk about their character. We talk about the individual. See, I explain to them that I can't do anything about poverty or them being in a single-headed household or anything else. However, I explain to them that you can control you. Your eyes, what your eyes are seeing is true. There is chaos. And your challenge, are you going to run towards chaos or you're not? And we all have choices out here. So I just explained to them and encouraged them to do right. But what's interesting, though, because these two gentlemen that shot the 6-year-old, God rest his soul, they had been in the system. Right? So they have gone through a process where some intervention was taking place. People were trying to instruct them how to do right. And what did they do? They chose to do wrong. They didn't have to do that. So my thing is, I talk to students about choice. That's all I do.
Well, I hope that they listen. They're, I think, fortunate to have a counselor, a mentor. You know, Rosemary, when we know more about these 3 young men who are accused of shooting this little boy to death, we know, as Robert says, that 2 of them had already been in the criminal justice system from the time they were 13 years old or so. We're also probably going to find that they came from very poor families, single-family homes, no male role model in their life. I mean, all the check marks of that lead to a life where a kid breaks the law and does awful things. How do we stop that? I mean, where do you begin to address that?
Boy, I wish I had the answers. You know, it seems like there's lost hope in our community and in certain neighborhoods that a generation of young people are being lost to the streets. So I hope people smarter than me know how to approach it. But the question that I have is, how did these kids get guns? Where are all these guns coming from? And how do we get these guns off the street and hold whoever initially bought it accountable? Well,
I know because we are friends, and I know that you contacted Marion Hammer, the head of the National Rifle Association in Florida, and as Mark would tell us, a huge influential voice in passing legislation or not passing it. And you said to her, what do we do about guns? And how do we need smart guns? Do we need to micro stamp the bullets? I mean, there are things that can be done. What was her answer?
Well, you know, she is the voice of the NRA in Florida. So I said, if you were sitting here, what would you say? And she would have you know that there's laws against teenagers buying guns. There's laws about teenagers, you know, committing violence, about shooting into schools, and that she places the blame, you know, in the neighborhoods, in the families. That why are kids being raised without respect for life? But in the end, she does not support any kind of regulation that on keeping guns out of the wrong hands, anything that would hold responsible the person who allowed that gun to get into that kid's hand.
Well, and the legislature seems to be taking that view as well. If any kind of legislation, not draconian, even relatively minor steps, in my point of view, to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill or criminals or people who simply shouldn't have them, they say you can't mess with the Second Amendment. I mean, it's just not open to be changed.
By and large, yeah, that's the prevailing view in Florida and has been for a long time. I mean, the problem is we've kind of been checkmated in that we do have a Second Amendment. We do have a right to bear arms in some form or fashion. The U.S. Supreme Court has now made it clear we have an affirmative right to individually bear firearms. So we make lots of guns and have lots of guns. But in the end, I do agree with Marion Hammer in this regard, is that the people squeezing the triggers are ultimately responsible. Yeah. And I agree with Rosemary and Robert, is that there is a systemic problem in the community that these things happen. But the problem is that the people who believe, hey, let's do no regulation of guns, okay, fine. Well, if you're going to have a society established where there's no regulation of guns and a lot of young kids can get guns and shoot them, let's make sure those young kids are raised in a community where they have hope, where their parents have jobs, where the schools are adequately able to educate them, and where the police properly police the community.
All right. Robert, so many of these kids, it seems to me, I'm no expert, but they are nihilistic. They do not see themselves in the future. If you said to a lot of these young guys, including the ones who were arrested, do you see yourself with a wife and a family, a good job in 15 years? They'd say, I can't see that far. I don't see myself that way. I mean, how do you say to these young men, you will find a place within society and you can prosper and have the fruit of your labor?
Look, when I encountered a young man at a particular school, and something was said to him with regard to a drug deal, right? So I called him over, and I went through a series of questions, okay? I asked him, I said, can you identify anyone in Liberty City who is selling drugs? Are they winning, sir? And he said, no, Dr. Malone. I said, let me ask you something. He made somebody pregnant, right? He got a baby mom. He said, yes. I said, is the baby mom, is she happy? I said, what about the children? Are they happy? He said, no, Dr. Malone. And I said, okay, you have shown me to be intelligent with common sense. So my question to you is, why are you running towards chaos then? Mm-hmm. See, I have to check them. Because, see, the prevailing idea is that these young men, because they live in a certain area, do not have the intelligence, common sense. They do. And that's why I say it's about choice. Son, you see chaos. Everything around you is chaos. So you have to make the choice. Are you going to run towards it? No one, the police, the state attorney, and I know the bill is stuck. I understand. So what if it doesn't go through? So then now it goes on the community. The community has to step up. It took 5 days for these young men to be identified. Right. It's going to take a couple other days for other crimes to be taken care of. And also, I think it's a 20–30% clearance rate in law enforcement. You know, that's shameful. It's not. I know that it's been an issue with hiring police, of finding the funding, but it's also been an issue with community silence. Yeah. And we can no longer say, okay, let's be silent because we're afraid. Because what is the choice? Status quo is not. We can't do that anymore. No,
it's unacceptable. All right, we've got to take a break, so everybody hold your thoughts. We're going to come back with more here on our roundtable in just a minute. Welcome back on this Sunday morning. Live in our studio, we have our roundtable going, and it's going well. Dr. Robert Malone is here, Mark Caputo, and Rosemary O'Hara. Rosemary, this win by Hillary Clinton in South Carolina, whoa. 3 out of 4 voters said yes to Hillary. I mean, that's just powerful.
A blowout win for Hillary in South Carolina. Boy, what a shot in the arm for her campaign. Right. Shows that she's energized African-American voters, women, people of different income groups. But as Glenna pointed out, she didn't win the young vote. But the young vote, what was it, 12 or 15% of the turnout. So she's still not energizing and exciting a key constituent, but no, a big win.
Yeah. I mean, did you think I knew that you thought that she was going to win?
I didn't think she was going to. I mean, this is the kind of win that damages the opposing campaign's DNA, right? It destroys them from the inside. Right. I mean, it's a 74-point win. That's insane. What's important here is to look at African American voters backed her by a bigger margin than they backed Obama over her in 2008. Right. And black voters are one of the pillars of the Democratic Party. Right. You know, Bernie Sanders' appeal seems to largely be white liberals and younger white liberals.
Right. Well, he reminds me, honestly, this will age me, but that's fine, Eugene McCarthy. Yeah. I mean, he is sort of the children's campaign. I mean, a 74-year-old guy. And you have to say you respond to his authenticity. But, I mean, the idea is, I don't know, Robert, American socialism, I just think that we live in another era. Yeah. I mean, people respond to the idea that the system is rigged, and of course, to a degree, it is rigged. And it favors white men and the investment community, Wall Street. But I think that what we saw yesterday was voters saying, yeah, but Hillary can do better with that than Bernie.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting when they, John Lewis came out and said, you know, I never seen him in the civil rights movement, a democratic socialist. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then a couple of weeks later, you see that he's been arrested and thrown in jail as a result of his participation in the civil rights movement. And I think, you know, the Democrats are battling like this, and, you know, she has a problem with trustworthiness. I mean, you know, we were talking about in the room where she was talking about, you know, releasing the transcripts, that interview, and she said, well, if everybody else do it, then I'll do it. You know, but you have a problem with trustworthiness, and you need to just show what's going on so that people can move forward.
But people, did they not, Mark, look past the trustworthiness, the character issue to electability and somebody who speaks for me? And I mean, I thought the New York Times editorial on Friday, I guess it was, that said, release the transcripts of your talks to Goldman Sachs. They paid you more than $200,000. Show us what you said. Right. I think that she's got to do that.
Right. That is one of the chinks in her armor, that people don't trust her, the emails, speaking to Wall Street, where she gets her money, where the Clinton Foundation gets its money. All of that said, though, I mean, people are speaking. On the young people, though, you know, to me, in this election, the voice of young people needs to be heard, and they're saying, you know, what's coming down the pike, our life isn't going to be as good as yours. Right. And the cost of college, and what's wrong with universal health coverage? So, but whether young people will have their voices heard,
well, they're among the least likely people to show up and vote. Right. So, congratulations, Bernie. You won the least likely demographic to vote. And when you come to a state like Florida, you know, 28% of the registered Democrats are African Americans.
Before we run out of time, we just must speak about the Republican candidates, and here's a little bit of one of the classic exchanges on Thursday night on CNN with Marco Rubio and Donald Trump. Listen to this.
You're the only person on the stage that's ever been fined for hiring people to work on your projects illegally. You hired some workers from Poland.
I'm the only one on the stage that's hired people. You haven't hired anybody.
Well, in fact, some of the people he hired. Well, but hold on.
I've hired tens of thousands of people over my job. You've hired
1,000 people from another company,
from another country. Credit cards, etc.
Let me say. Let me just say.
Well, and it went on, and then on Friday it traded even more insults. But you know, Mark, the fact that Marco Rubio has finally taken off the gloves 10 debates later, and went after him directly like this, I've got to say he put Trump on the defensive.
Yeah, and I'd been writing a few times that I think one of the things that Marco Rubio had been missing is the element of toughness in the eyes of the Republican electorate. Right. This is an electorate that wants toughness, a little meanness. He showed that. Too little, too late. We'll find out.
Yeah. The New York Times on Thursday or Friday reported that 300 Americans had applied to work at Mar-a-Lago, right, the fabulous resort that Trump owns up in Palm Beach, and that only 17 people were hired, 17 Americans. And this is the guy who says, I'm against immigrants, and everybody who he hired was on a foreign worker visa. So it's pretty hypocritical.
It defies credulity that he was unable to find local people who are willing to work for tips and good, decent jobs in hospitality at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, it's just a fascinating campaign, and I'm so glad we got to talk about it. Robert Mullen,
really
great to have you.
Thank you so much.
Come in, and Mark Caputo, Rosemary O'Hara. Great to see you. All right, still to come, my personal perspective about the staggering number of shooting deaths involving South Florida kids. Here is a live look now from our Key West cam at Mallory Square. What a beautiful day it is, and here is Jennifer Correa with the Sunday forecast. Jennifer.
Good afternoon, and it has been such a great forecast for the rest of the weekend. Sunday, not too bad, even though we're seeing a lot more cloud cover out of Hollywood Beach, but still enough sunshine. So if you're heading out to the beach, use that sunscreen. Nothing but sunshine, though, for Key West. Absolutely gorgeous, as you can see there. High pressure still in control, but milder temperatures this afternoon already. We're feeling it out there, hitting those low 70s at this hour. Tomorrow, though, we'll hit a high 79, which is, by the way, normal for this time of year. Then we're back into the 80s by the middle part of the week.
Jennifer, thank you very much. All right, before we leave you this morning, a personal perspective about kids shooting and killing each other. And let's be blunt. We're talking about black kids shooting and killing other black kids. It happened again last night in Miami, but it's been happening this week almost every day. All these deaths are sad, none more sad than the murder of King Carter, a 6-year-old child. He was playing outside his home last weekend and got caught in the crossfire between young thugs with guns. They were there blazing away at each other in broad daylight. It's a beef police say started with insults posted on Facebook. So these idiots settled their dispute with bullets, and a spray one struck and killed little King Carter. I extend my sincere condolences to his parents, his family. No innocent 6-year-old child deserves to be shot and killed. As for those who say he is in a better place, I hope that gives you consolation. I think a better place for King would be at home, playing, laughing, studying for school, getting hugs and kisses to people who loved him. Kudos to Miami-Dade police, who did an excellent job finding the suspected killers. Kudos also to folks in the neighborhood who came forward, passed along tips. That's how it should work, but usually does not. Now that little King has been buried, it is time to formulate an action plan to address this violent gun epidemic. More than 60 of our children have been shot in the last year, and at last count, 26 of them died. That is just unacceptable. I'd like to see the police, the faith community, the schools, community leaders, and courageous politicians come together and move forward, fashion a plan, a step-by-step plan to take guns away from kids who use them criminally, to counsel them in school when they start to go down the wrong road, to work with them, the police, to interact with young people and patrol dangerous neighborhoods more closely, for the courts to search out better treatment programs for troubled kids. Most of all, the improvements have to start in our homes. Parents need to start monitoring what their kids say on Facebook and other social media. The black community is bearing the brunt of this terrible loss, but it is our collective problem, our loss, our crisis. You remember the old saying, takes a village to raise a child? Well, where is our village? We need to come together, all of us, to stop kids from killing other kids. This simply cannot go on. That's my perspective. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and that Spotlight wins the Oscar tonight for Best Picture. Remember, as always, stay informed, get involved. See you next Sunday.